My name is Mitchell, and you'll have to excuse me because I'm quite sick at the moment, so my voice is not at 100%. But for my cultural project, I decided to help with the cooking and selling of Mexican style street food, as well as doing a little bit of research on the history of street vending in Mexico. So, what did I do? As I mentioned, I helped in the cooking and selling of Mexican style street food, and who I helped was my girlfriend and her family, many of the family originally being from Mexico, and so a lot of home recipes. Throughout the process, I was shown some of the cooking process for various things, such as the homemade carnitas that that they made. I was shown kind of what goes into that and how they make it, and I got a lot of time practicing my Spanish speaking skills. My role in the process, once we started selling, ended up being as the person who would calculate how much money the customers would owe, and I would have to talk to them and tell them how much they owed in Spanish because a lot of them were speaking Spanish. So it was a good experience being able to practice the and implement the Spanish speaking skills I've learned in this class. So the picture there you see is our menu. We had sopes de pollo, various kinds of quesadillas, carnitas, as I mentioned before, tacos de carnitas. So you could either buy a bag or pound, I believe, of carnitas, or you could have tacos with carnitas on it. And then we had bebidas as well as gorditas. So how does it compare to my culture? Well, I can't really say I have much of a culture when it comes to this, but street food vending, it was not a big part of my childhood or anything. I would occasionally go to street vendors and get food, but it wasn't very often. And anytime we would go out, we would usually end up at a restaurant or fast food or something like that. But from my research and talking to my girlfriend and her family, as well as going places with them, I, it seems like street food vending is a lot bigger in Mexican culture than whatever my culture is. Um, and though most of the street vendors I remember going to as a kid were Mexican run. Not all of them. I definitely remember in San Francisco going getting some Indian street food, but for the most part, the few I can remember are Mexican. And the biggest thing is the food is different. I feel that if someone of my culture was selling food on the street, it would be significantly different to what a Mexican street vendor would be selling, or any other kind of street vendor, to be honest. So, as part of the project, I interviewed my girlfriend. She grew up going to street vendors in LA, and I wanted to ask her about that and talk and get her experience on it for the project. So, her main points were that street vendors feel a lot more personal and more nice. They they try and make a personal connection different than a waiter in a restaurant or especially some big fast food chain. And a quote that she said that stuck out to me was, they'll not just take your order, but try and start a conversation. Ask you how you've been doing, if you got any plans. Excuse me. I feel that that's pretty nice because they're not just taking your money, but actually trying to form a bond with you. And from the few experiences I have had going to street vendors, many of which have been with her and her family, that's really true, and that stuck out to me as well. They always seem super nice, and though I don't speak very much Spanish, they still try and form a more of a personal connection than you would probably see at a restaurant. So, what did I learn? I did some research on the history of street vendors in Mexico, and it definitely has a very long history in Mexico, which includes the current day. From what from what I can gather, street vending is still a massive part of the culture, and Mexican communities both in and outside of Mexico. And as I mentioned earlier, from my personal experience in LA, I noticed there's quite a lot of street vending over there. So yeah. Um it Street vending in Mexico has roots all the way back to at least the 1500s when it evolved into closer to what we know now after the Spanish conquest. However, corn was used a lot in early street food, especially by the indigenous people of Mexico. Here are my sources, and thank you for watching.